Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. We may have someone still show up, but we've got enough. We've got a quorum, so let's get started. And first, we'll just approve the meeting minutes and the approval letters. Has everybody had an opportunity to review them? I could hear a motion.
I have one correction on the minutes and decision letters under the applicant request for 91 Van Buren. It should say uncompensated fill. There's just a word missing. And with that, inclusion, I would move to approve the minutes and decision letters. It's on the third page.
I'll second that motion. Having a motion and a second, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none. And we'll move on to the first matter on the agenda, cases to be heard. And if we could, Penny, read into the record the writ of certiorari statement.
Our opening statement to the applicant. If you are not satisfied with the decision made by the Stormwater Management Committee, you may appeal the decision by filing for a writ of certiorari with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the committee's decision. You are advised to seek the independent advice of legal counsel to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been satisfied.
The folks here to speak on behalf of the applicant, come on up to the table, would be great. And then we'll start off with staff reading into the record the applicant's request.
The first case is case number 2017-00029, BNA Employee Parking Lot Extension, located at 1616 Murfreesboro Pike. The parcel number, or SAMPAR number, is 121-000-10700. The MPDS inspector is Donald Irves, and is Council District 13. The applicant's request is to allow the following: removal of 1.2 acres of wetlands and associated buffer, disturbance of stream buffer from McCoy Creek, and to allow grading and removal of existing impervious area in Zone 1. The appellant is the Metropolitan Nashville Airport Authority. The representative is Zachary Dufour with Kimberly Horn. There are no stormwater staff comments, no comments provided from codes, no comments for planning, and Greenways defers to the Stormwater Management Committee.
Thank you very much. We'll hand the floor to the applicant.
Thank you. My name is Zach Dufour, Kimberly Horn & Associates. I'm a civil engineer working with the airport on this project. So just as a little bit of background, you see there on your screen, there is currently an existing employee parking lot that's in operation. It's roughly 1,200 parking spaces. That's all employee badge access to that employee lot and shuttled back to the airport. And what we're doing is requesting to construct an additional roughly 680 spaces immediately to the south and southwest of that existing lot. So right there in the corner of Faircloth and Old Murfreesboro/Murfreesboro Pike. The primary reason for this is just the growth and expansion of the airport that they're experiencing right now. I'm sure what we did was we analyzed the two different options for this lot, two different parking configurations, two different lot sizes that would accommodate different parking amounts. Thank you. And what we came up with was the site plan that you see in front of you, which is roughly 680 spaces. I will mention that we are limited in the area that we can construct by the runway protection zone. On one of those maps, you can see that a little bit better, but the runway protection zone line runs right along the north edge. Yeah, that dashed red line is the RPZ, runway protection zone. So this lot is really only about 1,700 feet from the end of the runway. And so that runway protection zone really limits construction. Certainly no structures or permanent facilities are allowed in that per the FAA. So you can see our lot really goes, or the north end of our lot really goes right up to that RPZ. So when evaluating areas that we could put this and obviously not have environmental and stormwater impacts, we were limited to the areas that we could place this additional parking. So yeah, as you can see, the wetlands right currently is at the bottom or just immediately upstream of that branch of McCrory Creek. That existing parking lot was constructed in 2009, and there was hydrologic determinations completed in 2007, and environmental assessments done for that project, and TDEC concurrence letters, and the parking lot study, the existing parking lot study area didn't fully encompass the area that we're working in, but it included the majority of the area we're working in, and at that time they found no wetlands on site, and we've got documentation to show that. So what we think happened was, based on the construction of the existing employee parking lot, there was a large topsoil stockpile that was placed at the corner of Faircloth and Old Murfreesboro, that sort of created this depression and trapped water from its natural course prior to that. So it's, in our opinion, that a lot of that wetlands was created based on the construction of that existing lot, which would have been less than 10 years ago. We did have an assessment done that's been confirmed by both TDEC and the Army Corps. That assessment indicated that these are low-quality wetlands. Most of them are in open areas that are currently mowed and bush hogged, and there's a little bit that's currently in wooded areas, but the vast majority is out in the open, just a blank, vacant field right now. And then, as you can see on our mitigation plan, what we're proposing, the overall project not only consists of the proposed parking and impervious area that goes along with that, but concurrently we're proposing to remove approximately 8 acres of additional impervious that's really within that RPZ, and just increasing the negative impacts to that stream right now. So we're trying to offset that as much as we can and remove that at the same time. We're also, we've been working with Jennifer, and we've shown that we're meeting our water quality requirements, really, based on the removal of that impervious area. So on top of that, to kind of mitigate the impacts, we're installing a water quality swale at the north end, that dark purple line that you see. And then we are repurposing 2 existing 50% water quality units that are in the blue circles there to treat runoff from the proposed parking lot. And then, as a replacement for those 2 existing 50% units that are treating runoff from the existing lot, we're going to install 1 80% unit to treat that entire drainage area. So we feel like we're offsetting the existing lot to meet and really exceed
what's there today and then repurposing those existing 50% units to treat the proposed area, and then adding the water quality swale as well for the area further to the west. And then I guess I would just like to mention the last thing that we mentioned in our statement of hardship is, I mentioned this project was the wetlands are approximately 1,700 feet from the end of the runway. And based on federal guidelines from the FAA Advisory Circular 150, states that wildlife attractants cannot be within 10,000 feet of the AOA, Airport Operations Area. And so we're well within that area, or that buffer, that requirement. And so based on that FAA circular, they recommend, removal of wildlife attractants within that buffer area. So if that's all I got. Did I miss anything? You got anything to add? With that, we'll take any questions from the committee.
Next, we'll move to the public and see if we have any people that are here to speak either in favor of or against this project. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of the project? Seeing none, is there anyone here to speak against the project or opposed to the project? Seeing none, I open it up to the committee for discussion. Questions for the applicant? Looking to you, Dot. Start this party.
Yeah, I'll start us off. Timeliness is a virtue here, right? Okay, so what are you planning to do with the 8-acre new pervious site? Are you going to grass it, put the trees?
Well, we are sort of limited. Again, we're in the runway protection zone, and that's even closer to the runway. So trees are sort of discouraged. But our plan was just to place topsoil and plant grass.
Okay. Any particular kind of grasses, native grasses, or tall fescue? Don't have a plan
I think
for that
we can certainly be open to that. I did forget to mention it. This wasn't mentioned earlier, but we are just currently requesting a preliminary hearing today. We obviously don't have all of our permits. We're in the process of getting TDEC and core permits. That advertisement period is currently underway. So our plan is to come back for a final variance once we've obtained all those federal and state permits. But
So this is this a preliminary?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Is that, is the impervious area being removed actually a part of this project? It sounds like it is.
That's correct. Yeah.
Awesome.
It's demo as part of this project.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Thanks.
Yeah.
We definitely can't plant any trees back in there because of the.
Oh, you're responding to my question. Is that okay?
How's that? Ken Watley. I'm the airport environmental coordinator for the airport. And I'd like to speak on the trees and the wildlife if I could. We cannot plant any trees back in where that RPZ is. We had torn down the old buildings that were there before the rules had changed on that runway, having any kind of structures in it. Part of this project is to remove all of the asphalt that was left out there, turn it back into a turf-type grass, so that we can't plant a meadow mix or anything like that that would attract wildlife and birds. So it will most probably go back with a fescue or Bermuda zoysia or something that we can keep mowed and keep the wildlife down. Just as a side note to this, just last week we had another bird strike on that end of the runway. We had two birds hit a southwest plane on approach, and it was right in that general area. So we'd like to keep it where we can keep it maintained, keep it mowed, and keep the wildlife down, because we are having a terrible trouble at the airport right now with wildlife. Everything is being pushed in and pushed out, pushed in, taking things out here. Things are moving from one place to the other. So we are trying to mitigate the wildlife at the airport. We've had the coyote strike on an aircraft recently. So we do have a lot of wildlife issues. So that's why we're asking for these things to happen. We would love to plant some trees back, but we're just trying to keep the trees away from the airport, as per he said about the wildlife, about the FAA and the buffers. So eventually, at some point in time, anywhere that we have a wetland, we're going to have to come ask you guys that we've got to move them. Because the FAA is saying if you're getting in that area anywhere close, you need to do away with those wildlife attractants. I'll let it go with that. Thank you for your time.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think it's fair to say the Cumberland River is a lot more narrow landing strip than the Hudson River in New York, so.
Yes, sir. Please.
All right. So you filed for state and federal permits. You've gotten the determination that this wetland has emerged over time, and unfortunately for you all, it's a jurisdictional wetland. You're confident of that? Okay.
Yes.
All right. That's all the questions I've got.
Given that this is a preliminary and they're going to have to come back with all the proper approvals, from especially TDEC, I'd like to make a motion to approve the variance request.
I'll second that.
We've got a motion and a second to approve the variance request, preliminary. Anybody need any discussion?
I've just got a question. Are we approving the variance, or are we approving them going forward with a preliminary determination and then coming back forward?
We're approving the preliminary request.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what
Yeah, it wouldn't be called a variance, so we're approving the preliminary. Having a motion and a second to approve the preliminary. Let's take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none. Motion.
I'm going to abstain since I didn't hear their presentation. I apologize for being late, Chairman.
All right. Thank you, Deborah. All right. So the motion passes. We'll go ahead and call the next case. The applicant wants to come up, have a seat at the table. The next case is 3601 Wilbur Place. Are they pink? See, that's a man comfortable in his own shoes. He can pull out his wife's glasses, and I don't care. I'll go in public. I'll go on TV with him, you know. Doesn't bother me a bit. All right, now I know why you were spying on us last time you were here. Okay. Are you the engineer on this? Oh, yeah. Your company, yeah. Do you need to wait for your representative? You want to move you down to the next so that he can, or he or she can just show up if they're? It's up to you.
Yeah, if you think y'all might have questions for the engineer.
I think it's probably safe to say that, yeah. Yeah, let's do that. So let's go on to the third item. So the next applicant case to be heard is the Collier Engineering Company. Are all your parties here? Yes. Okay, wonderful. And then, were you here when the opening statement was read?
Yes, sir.
Wonderful. Then we'll go ahead and turn to staff for a description of the request.
Thank you, sir. The next case is 2017-00031, Collier Engineering Company at 5560 Franklin Pike Circle. Map and parcel would be 16-000-05500. Inspector is Ken Trantner, and the councilman for the district is Councilman Robert Swope. This is a preliminary stormwater management request, and the request is for the following: disturbance and encroachment of the Zone 1 and Zone 2 buffer of an unnamed trip to 7 Mile Creek for the renovation and expansion of an office building with associate parking and grading. 2, placement of stormwater BMPs in the buffer. 3, placement of modified buffer signage. 4, continuous mowing and maintenance of a portion of the buffer. The appellant is Collier Engineering, being represented by Michael Pavin. Stormwater does have comments on this case. 2017-000-0031 does not meet the requirements for sewer encroachments as shown on the submittal of plans. We would like additional information, and they are as follows: the sewer profile, cross sections. There's a potential for a relocation of a sewer line, and additional items may be requested during the review process. Codes provided no comments. Planning, the site is zoned OR20, and the plans indicate pervious pavers will be used to offset the impacts of the additional parking. Minimal disturbance will occur with the required buffer area. Defer to stormwater for review, and Greenway has deferred to stormwater too. Thank you.
Thank you. If the applicant would like to make a presentation, welcome.
Yes, thank you all for hearing our case this morning. This is preliminary, like Steve mentioned, so we appreciate your time. This is our office, so we're representing ourselves in this matter. I'm Michael Pavin. I am one of the senior managers at Collier Engineering. You can see by the lot that we have, we're somewhat constrained. It's a bit irregular. It's a pie-shaped lot. We currently have an office. It's about 8,000 square feet. It's about a 4,000 square foot footprint, 2 stories, small parking lot. Out front of our building, when we bought it, it has what is a stream feature. We haven't done an actual hydrologic determination on it, but based on the watershed and everything, we do know it's a stream. It has a total of a 50-foot buffer associated with it. Zone 1 and Zone 2. The watershed is primarily the area, if you're familiar with the Old Hickory Boulevard and I-65 interchange. We kind of live in the shadow of that. It's almost entirely encapsulated through that whole area. As it comes to us, you can see in the photos existing conditions. It daylights on our property. It runs through an old channel that with rock walls on each side, and then it runs under our parking lot through an existing CMP before it daylights into what is more of a functioning stream that I believe was actually relocated when they built the Target development, if you're familiar with the Target in Brentwood. What we would like to do in order to expand our office at all on this property, where the building, I believe, already may infringe on the Zone 2 buffer, if not the Zone 1. So we're very much constrained by that. To add any square footage to the building, we obviously need to add parking. So there's not a lot of room to work with, as you can see from the image that's up now. What we would like to do, if this committee would entertain it, would be to daylight more of that stream that is present. We would ask to shift. We would be shifting the stream towards Franklin Pike Circle, and we would still be somewhat constrained on the roadway side, so there would still be a wall and half of a channel, and then we would grade back a natural stream bank at about a 3-to-1 slope, vegetate everything in front of the building, which we would envision using native plants, a mixture of trees, native grasses, shrubs. We would still ask to maintain that to keep invasives out of it, keep it looking presentable, but everything in front of it would be representative of a natural ecosystem as much as possible with the small space we have. All of the new parking, as well as we would replace some of the existing parking with pervious pavements. We've tried to maximize every square footage outside of what would then be parking or building with BMPs, mainly bioretention, and more plantings. Also, I guess the other piece of our mitigation would be we would be replacing that CMP with a new open bottom natural arch culvert that would run under the parking lot, essentially in the same configuration it runs today. So that would be somewhat of an improvement with a natural bottom. And this is preliminary, like I said. I think we have not started. We've initially contacted TDEC and some of the other regulators that, of course, will be vital to getting this approved, but we wanted to come at least in a preliminary nature and hear any comments or concerns that this committee would have as well.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak in favor of or opposed to this project? Seeing none, we'll open up the discussion on the committee.
Okay. Do we have a photo of whether this lot flooded in 2010? It's a
Unfortunately, our 2010 flood imagery really only picked up the Cumberland River and the Harpeth River as far as showing flooding. Mm-hmm. All the other watersheds pretty much went up and went down rather quickly.
I can't answer. It did not. The CMP that goes under the parking lot is a bit undersized, so it will overtop and flow across the parking lot. And that has happened outside of 2010, so we would be upsizing it when we put that arch in.
Did it happen 3 or 4 weeks ago as well?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Part of that is also the, you can see the CSX rail line there. There's 2 tributaries that actually come together. I guess I didn't mention that, but one of them flows under CSX and then under Franklin Pike Circle. And they had a bunch of railroad ties that backed up and created an issue there too. So yeah, it was a bit of a mess a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I drove through there during the last big rain event, 8 or 10 inch rain, and that happened in several locations. A lot of mud got dumped in subdivision entrances and on roads. So since this is preliminary, you probably don't have much more detail about other enhancements. Do you envision any other enhancements as mitigation for the existing buffer that you're not going to disturb as an offsetting opportunity, or?
Unfortunately, with the size of the lot and everything, there's not much buffer that we wouldn't be disturbing as part of this project.
No, I mean in terms of like mitigating type improvements to the existing buffer. Do you anticipate planting more trees or increasing the density of the existing buffer? Or would that be an option that you all would consider?
Yes, I think when we come back, every bit of buffer that would be left that's not shown as building or parking lot in that plan would be planted with trees and vegetation. We would have virtually no turf left on this lot when we were left.
So if I'm reading your preliminary drawings correctly, it looks like the disturbance of the Zone 1 would be limited to converting a mowed area to pervious paving. Is that a fair?
Yeah, so there's 2 areas of disturbance, I guess. As you look at the lower left of that page, it may be difficult to see, but we would be expanding the building to the front there. So that would be encroaching in the buffer at that point. And then in the parking lot area, we would also be infringing in the Zone 2 and just slightly into the Zone 1 buffer.
But as you said, you're going to be proposing to daylight more streams, so technically you're creating more daylighted Zone 1 buffer?
Yes, I guess technically that would be true, yes.
Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you're saying that area that the buffer encroachment would be is a mowed and maintained area today?
Yes.
All right?
Correct.
Yeah.
How far does a new building encroach on the new Zone 1?
I should have the actual footage. None of this is our final application. Obviously, would pin that down. but I believe it would be about 5 to 10 feet into the Zone 1.
The new building?
Yes.
Into the new Zone 1?
Yes.
How many square feet are you adding to the building? You said it was 8,000 now?
It's 8,000 now. Our goal was to get it up to about 17,000, so it would be about a
9,000?
yeah, but that is a 2-story addition, so that's total square
You're
foot.
more than doubling the parking.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I'll just open up a discussion between us. I mean, I see this as an overdevelopment of the lot, personally. I don't really see the justification for doing this, so I have a tendency right now that I believe I would vote against it if this was for us, even all the approvals. I don't have a problem as much with moving the stream as much as them going into the Zone 1 after the fact. So, I mean, that's where I'm thinking. I'd love to hear if anybody has any other thoughts.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah, but, my concern goes back to my first comment that, my first questions tried to focus on opportunities to understand what you're mitigating and how to limit your impacts, how to offset your impacts. But it really does go back to the fact that the site is going to be more hardened just by virtue of a bigger building. And then more parking. The pervious paving helps a lot. Frankly, fescue lawns are not great pervious surfaces because they get compacted by construction equipment before they were used, and they get compacted by big lawnmowers that most people use now. And the roots don't grow very deep to fracture the soil and make it more permeable because the solar panels that feed the roots are cut off every week when they're trying to grow. And that area needs all of the water absorption it can get, not less. So
One question, one thing we had, I guess, also looked at, the preliminary nature of this. We're working through all kinds of scenarios, but if that addition had a green roof and actually maybe collect the runoff in a cistern-type system, would that make it possibly make it more acceptable?
I think I'm hearing that it's the encroachment into the new Zone 1. That's the problem. Is that right?
It's certainly one of my problems with it, yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know if there's a way you can do your building without encroaching within that area.
Sure.
But I think that as long as you're encroaching within that Zone 1, I think it's going to be an issue.
I mean, it's not against the law to create more flooding outside of these buffers, because there are regulatory limits that are kind of compromises around the amount of flooding that's created, but it's the floods above the regulatory limits that are created by creating more impervious surfaces. And in this kind of site, it really exponentially increases the impacts because that's where all the water is trying to get to, is down to the lowest elevation of the landscape, as you well know. I'd kind of go back to the original comments of it. Almost anything will overdevelop the site. It's really one of those situations that you all probably wouldn't have chosen to develop it originally if you had a better option. So that, I don't think a green roof really helps it. I mean, we need those kind of things on top of the hill, not at the bottom of the hill, and we need natural stuff at a minimum at the bottom of the hill. It helps to have more natural stuff at the top of the hill too, because those are the best sponges to soak up the runoff. And for those reasons, I'm inclined not to support it either. So.
Any other discussion? So just to reiterate where my thoughts on it was the relocation isn't what bothers me, but after you relocate, I would expect there not to be anything in Zone 1 or Zone 2. And if the property can't be developed in that way, I would probably be inclined to vote against it. That said, there's a motion on the floor for preliminary approval. I mean, there's not a motion on the floor for preliminary approval. Also, I'll put a motion up there to decline the preliminary approval.
Second.
Having a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'd like to take a vote. The motion is to decline the preliminary approval. All those in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And none. The motion fails. Thank you. All right, let's go back to the second case.
Now I recuse myself.
And now Dale will recuse himself.
Yeah, believe me, I better say it.
So back to the second case, which is Blake and Jenny Howard. I believe some of the representatives were not here when we first started. So Penny, if you could read the opening statement again, just so that we make sure we cover that base.
Our opening statement. If you're not satisfied with the decision made by the Stormwater Management Committee, you may appeal the decision by filing for a writ of certiorari with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the committee's decision. You are advised to seek the independent advice of legal counsel to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been satisfied.
Thank you. Now we'll turn it over to staff for an explanation of the case.
Next case on the agenda is case 2017-00030, 3601 Wilbur Place. The APN is 118-130-17400. The inspector is Kimberly Hayes. This is Council District 25, Councilman Russ Pulley. The applicant's request is to allow the following: portion of the footprint for new structure in Zone 2 buffer, installation of green infrastructure control practices, rain garden, permeable pavers, and modified French drains in Zone 2 buffer, and mowing and maintenance of the Zone 1 and Zone 2 buffer. The appellant is Blake and Jenny Howard. The representative is Michael Garrigan from Dell & Associates. Comments: Stormwater staff had no comments. Codes had no comments provided. Planning's comment is site is zone R10, defer to Stormwater for review, and Greenways defers to the Stormwater Management Committee.
Thank you very much. Now we'll turn the floor over to the applicant for a presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Michael Garrigan, Dale & Associates, 516 Heather Place. We are the civil engineers on this project. First, I'd like to apologize. Well, it technically wasn't tardiness because I was told 8:45, but I was going to be here at 8:15, but it's a long story, and it involves my youngest daughter and stomach flu, and I don't have a coat or a watch on, so, you know, connect the dots. It's been a fun morning. It's really cold, too. With me today is Jenny and Blake Howard. They are the owners of the property. They live in this home, and it is a duplex eligible property, so two-family lot. And their intent when they purchased this land, I believe it was 11 years ago, was to eventually, as their family grew, that they would build a second home on the lot that they would live in, and then either sell their current home or use it for visitors or in-laws coming into town, what have you. So when they came to us with this project, we, of course, obviously, I mean, you can look at the aerial that staff showed you at the beginning. Everything is not only in the Zone 2, but it's in the Zone 1 as you further go to the east. So when they came to us, we looked at what we were held with as far as the code setbacks would require, the Board of Zoning Appeals, the Zoning Code Department would require, and set that mark. And then we put, you know, what we and as well as the future, because they're going to live in this home, is a reasonable footprint. And we tried to be very minimal with any disturbances in the Zone 2 buffer. On the front end, I do want to be very clear that is a backyard. If you didn't know that there was a floodway there, you would just know it's a backyard. But it also goes right up to West Fork of Browns Creek, which is a fairly significant drainage way. So one thing, what we try to do, and what this slide and the next, I believe, will show you is we are decreasing the overall impervious surface on the lot today. We're adding a house, and we're going to decrease the impervious surface by 23%, because a lot of the property now is an impervious asphalt driveway, and that's going away. We're replacing that with pavers. The current encroachments into the Zone 2, which is the slide you're looking at now, it's that brown area on the left, and then that, the driveway. I'm talking about the difference between the two. I guess we could have color-coded that a little bit clearer, but you can see the driveway there, and then you can see the rooftop on the right side. So, the data is clear that we are decreasing impervious surface on this property. We are decreasing impervious surface in the buffer, and we are improving the amount of water, not only the amount of water that leaves the site, but the quality of the water that leaves the site. So that's going to kind of lead me into our mitigation. The first thing is, right now, it's mowed up to the bank. It's mowed and maintained. There is no buffer that exists on this property. It doesn't exist legally until the day somebody requests a permit, that's where we are now. So there is a buffer. It is mowed, weeded right up to the floodway line. Our proposal is to take that first 10 feet of that and plant it with natural grasses, switch grasses, things that will flourish and grow on their own and provide filtration before any runoff gets into Browns Creek, and also to kind of be almost like a clear and present line of demarcation. And that's where the buffer signs will be installed, the no disturb signs. And then outside of that, as the landscape plan shows, there are several native trees and plantings that will be run along outside of that 10-foot. So that's going to be like the line. So I guess what I'm trying to say from a water quality standpoint, there will be at a minimum of 10 feet less than what's being mowed and maintained today. So there's no arguing that is not an improvement. And then with the pervious pavers, obviously that's dropping the impervious surface, so that is an improvement. And then the last item that we looked at, when I met the Howards on their property, and it's pretty obvious if you're out there, Wilbert, for whatever reason, starts to super elevate to the south, I guess the southwest side there. Right before you get to their property, it tilts towards their property. So there's no crown in the road. So there's quite a bit of runoff that runs down the left-hand side of their existing home. And that's why we located what's shown on the plan as a rain garden at that point. It is not capturing anything from this property. It is simply capturing, and that one right there, thank you, that is capturing and treating to the best of its ability current off-site impervious runoff that runs straight into Browns Creek. Obviously, it'll slow it down, it'll treat it, and it will reduce it. So we've kind of tried to hit this, in a situation like this, we're asking you guys for a variance, so we're asking you for a favor, but what we want to do is walk away from this, and it's not just a little bit better, not just mitigated, but several levels better than what currently exists there today, and we believe we've accomplished that. So with that, I'll let the Howards share a little bit with you.
Good morning. As Michael said, I'm Jenny Howard. It's my husband, Blake Howard, and we live at 3601 Wilbur Place with our two daughters. Our oldest is 4.5, and our youngest is 9 months. And we've been there for 11 years. And over that time have invested in the property, built a lot of relationships in the neighborhood, and would like the opportunity to stay. Our vision has been to build a home for our family, which has grown. So if my parents come into town, there would be space that they could stay with us, or
maybe have a room that functions as a guest room / office. We could work from home. But along with that comes building in a restrained and responsible way. So not tearing down our current house, going for lot conformity, and putting, 6 homes there like we've seen done elsewhere, but instead, a restrained and responsible development where you've seen the signs that say build like you live next door. Well, we will literally live next door, so that should be easy for us. But to hit the highlights that Michael went over, rip out our massive impervious asphalt driveway, which, shoots water straight into the West Fork of Browns Creek. So rip that out and overall increase the pervious area by 23% on the site, reduce the continual mowing. As Michael said, right now it's all mowed. We would reduce that, plus add, for the first time, a true vegetative buffer, add a French drain system to the roof of the new home to capture all of that water, and also add a rain garden, which we hope would be something that we could show to other neighbors in our neighborhood, as because that's something they can do even if they're not going for a variance and they just want to put something in to benefit Browns Creek, which eventually will drain into the Cumberland. So that's kind of what our vision is. And so we would respectfully ask for your approval.
Thank you very much. Let's turn to the public. Is anyone here to speak in favor of or opposed to this variance request? All right, seeing none, then we'll open it up to the committee for discussion.
All right, Jeannie, if you don't mind, just for transparency reasons, would you mind saying for the record what you used to do in regard to this committee and what your day job is?
Absolutely. So over 5 years ago, I had the pleasure of actually representing the Stormwater Management Committee, but you are in good hands with Ms. Susan Jones today. And through that experience, really, enjoyed what I learned in interacting with the environmental folks, and then now I'm at TDEC as their general counsel.
And along the same vein, I taught a water management class for undergrad water management class this fall, and I had 4 teams of students studying West Fork or Browns Creek.
Okay.
So, but this was not one of our projects this site.
Okay.
So just say that for the record. So you're reducing impervious area, you're improving the buffer, you're staying out of the Zone 1, and the Zone 2 currently is a mowed lot, and you're going to reduce mowing in the Zone 1, and you're adding a new rain garden. So, okay.
Yes, sir, and I would point out that the majority of the rooftop for the new dwelling that's in the Zone 2 is currently asphalt driveway.
Okay. All right. And you're not doing a green roof. I'm just kidding. Okay. All right. That's all I need to know.
Where the proposed rain garden is, so that's like a marsh area now? Is that a wet area when it rains? Is that
It is somewhat, yeah, yes, sir. It's pretty clear when you see it. It just the vegetation on the ground is a little bit different than the rest of the yard, because that's where it's somewhat heavy, runoff that's coming off the hill there. And our intent, is to just kind of try to slow it down a little bit. I think we'll probably have to do some creative things with the design of that rain garden just to kind of dissipate the water before it gets to it. But the intent there is to keep it from continuing to just, go straight into Browns Creek.
So there's not,
a
a curb on Wilbur?
No, sir.
Have you done a grading plan to see how you'd be able to construct that rain garden? It looks really steep.
Right. It does have quite a bit of fall, and to be honest, the rain garden's just kind of been roughly sized. It has not been graded. I was looking at the same thing that you're referring to, and I was kind of trying to brainstorm in my own head. I think maybe what it would be is we would probably try to maybe terrace it or step it a little bit, with one being on the higher side and then it terraces down to the lower side. But it obviously we don't want to have a big retaining wall down at the bottom, or we don't want to have a whole bunch of fill or anything like that. But we can make it work. I've walked back there with them, and it's doable. Let me just say that. But it has not been designed in detail, no, ma'am.
I appreciate the knowledge that you learned, that you applied here, and it seems like that you've created quite a bit of mitigation and improvements to the lot in regards to the stormwater. So I'm proposing that we accept the variance or approve the variance as presented.
There's a motion on the floor. There has not been a second. So discussion is still open, or anyone is welcome to second the motion.
Are the roof drains on the new building going to tie directly below grade to that French drain? Or do they spill to grade and then?
They'll tie directly into the modified French drains, and then daylight either by surface or pop-up, most likely pop-up drains. If they, for what doesn't infiltrate via the French drains.
So I have to have a second in order to just have a discussion?
Yes, sir. Someone needs to second the motion in order to go into discussion, and you can second for purposes of discussion. So you don't necessarily, when the vote is taken, have to vote that way, but just so that you can get procedurally to the discussion part. Otherwise, the motion is going to die for lack of a second.
All right, does anyone want to give a second the motion in order to have the discussion?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Now we've got a second, and now we can talk. Right.
Sorry.
I've got a question for staff. Do we have any, do we require any specific specs on porous driveways? I suspect in this case they're going to set a model example of how to build this kind of thing. But I've seen a lot of these kind of things put in the neighborhood, and because I drive by them a lot, I see them at various phases of construction, and a lot of them have a great look after they're done. Sometimes they don't resemble anything like they're supposed to when they're first constructed. Do we provide any kind of specific requirements or guidelines on how these are constructed when they're used in this manner?
We on the single family, we have Appendix H, which is the Infill Manual, and that's where you'll find the design specs for how you do a modified French drain for a single family. And along with that, you'll also have bioretention specs, or it's actually more like a rain garden specs. And you'll find the pervious pavement specs in there also.
Thank you. Very professional.
Could we zoom out on Google Maps so I can get a better feel for where we are? I hate that our phones don't work in here like our old spot. I can't, for some reason, my map won't pull up on Wi-Fi.
I'm over by Lipstone, east of Lipstone.
Okay. No, I know exactly. I can tell you what, I'm wrestling with the hardship question. And whether or not it's a reasonable expectation that you could do a second home on the same lot, even though it's allowed by code or zoning. So I put that out there just to, I mean, that's what I'm wrestling with. I think you guys have done a really good job of mitigating. But we have to look at, when we grant a variance, we have to look at the hardship first and foremost, I think. Could you zoom out on this just a bit, so I could tell? I mean, has anyone else on your street put in another home in the same lot?
Mr. Chair, may I state, this is one of the largest you can see. It's basically 2 lots compared to everything else around it. So it is a very large lot. It would only be assumed that it would accommodate 2 units.
On a similar lot across the street, they built 4.
They did 4?
Yes, sir.
Which one was that?
That's right in the bend.
To the southwest.
And you're zoned for 2? Is it zoned for a duplex? Is that what I heard?
Yes, ma'am. It's zoned for a 2-family dwelling, and these will be detached, technically detached duplexes.
Okay.
What size of homes are those that they build down in that corner that you were just talking about, that 4?
They appear large from the street. I don't know the
4 or
exact.
5,000?
4 or
4 or 5,000, you think?
No, and we would not propose to build a 4 or 5,000 square foot house either.
They look big.
But they appear large from the street.
I know the smallest, so our children go to school with one of the families in that 4, and so they're looking to move possibly, and the smallest of the 4 is 2,850 as far as square footage. So that was built before the cash grab in the last few years, so they were, I don't know if modest is the right word, but relative to what's going up today, I would say, smaller in scope.
And I would add that it looks like Wilbur is a 50-foot right-of-way, and that the one that's a rectangle, the very first one you see under the PL of Wilbur Place, that appears to probably be about 40 feet wide by maybe 60, or a little bit more than the right-of-way deep, which both dimensions are larger than what the Howards are proposing for their new home.
Yeah, I think you can see from this map that there's a lot of new development in that area, and 2 houses being put on most of the lots.
And they're smaller lots, too.
Maybe this is a learning opportunity for the issue of hardship. Mr. Chairman, are you worried that approval of this proposal without understanding, having a lot of confidence in the hardship case might put their investment at jeopardy down the road, or might make them vulnerable to some kind of appeal of this decision? Or
No. It's whether or not I should be in favor of granting variance.
And I will point out that the hardship is that we've got the building scooted as far up as the code will allow us to scoot it up. And I do believe that that is a specific hardship in some sort of language within the Stormwater Manual.
if we could be out of Zone 2, we would.
Right.
Trust me. I mean, even if I didn't have to come before this committee, we would. But, you know, we haven't gone to the back of the entire Zone 2. I mean, we've just encroached as little as possible given the setback from the street, and then tried to super mitigate so that, you know, from a water quality standpoint, which is what this board oversees, we're improving the quality of the water and the retention from rain events.
Yep. I've got a historic concern just with the setback requirements. I've often wondered if we should have more of a dialogue with Metro Planning about the impact that higher density development is having on our buffers because of the setback requirements. We see lots of variance proposals that the setback requirements are pushing them into the buffer. I never really understood why we're still building as if big front yards are a modern, up-to-date building practice, considering most developments seem to be putting more space behind homes. I do understand trying to stay within the existing character of the community when you have homes lined up in a certain way in a historic developed fashion. But most of those are being torn down now and replaced, and we're putting them in the same setback footprint, which I don't understand completely. Maybe there's probably reasons for that. But to get cars off the street, maybe, I don't know, get more driveway space. I'm not sure what it is. But
You said overall we're decreasing impervious area?
Yes, sir. We're decreasing the pervious area by 23%. And to speak to what Mr. Galbraith was just discussing, I mean, that's a much broader discussion that we would hope our case doesn't get lumped into, because, you know, the whole setback law came from community input, because some areas they do want them up in the street, some areas they don't. They just want everything to kind of flow. But I understand what the stormwater side of it. But, you know, in this case, this literally is we did what we had to do. I mean, it's the best way to put a house on that property. They are entitled another house on that property. It doesn't mean they're guaranteed, but they are entitled legally a house on that property. And this is a setback is a very specific hardship in the manual, and we feel like we have by far exceeded mitigation expectations. So if you're concerned about a precedent, then I think this would be, to be honest, a good one. The lot's larger than everything else around it. It's if you go back and you look at all the lots going to the west there, I mean, it seems clear that there should be two lots. It should have two houses. I'm talking about the ones immediately to the west. It matches, it flows perfectly with them. And there's not a BMP in this watershed unless some of those duplexes towards the bottom of the screen were done after the infill regs were put into place. And we're installing several BMPs. So,
what was the percentage of decrease in the impervious?
The overall decrease was 23%. I'm sorry. The overall decrease was 3% decrease overall, 23% decrease within the Zone 2 buffer.
Okay. And then that's the reason for that is the pavement is now pervious pavements.
That's correct. That is taking the pavers out of the calculation.
All right. I'll make a motion. As I stated earlier, I'm wrestling with a hardship. I think I've got my thoughts around it now.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. I think we have a motion on the table.
Oh, and a second.
Yeah,
that's right.
Sorry.
I forgot we had the second.
I think you got what I got.
Well, then I'll talk about my hardship issue then.
Okay.
And there's lots of them. I was wrestling with just what's the hardship on the property, and certainly the existing home is already in the buffer. Without a doubt, if someone came in and asked to increase the size of the existing home, given this neighborhood, and at the same time was reducing pervious and making all the improvements they would, I think that is a situation that we would typically approve. That being the case, really what's the distinction in two separate buildings? And I can't draw one with respect to the stuff that we're tasked to consider when we're looking at variances. So from that perspective, the hardship exists because it's existing in Zone 2, and certainly we would entertain the increase of that size of that home just because it's two separate buildings as opposed to one. That shouldn't play into my consideration. So I do believe that hardship exists, and I do see that they're making improvements to the property, significant water quality improvements as compared to the way it is today. So if there's more discussion, we can have that, or if we want to go ahead and take a vote, then I'm happy to go ahead and ask for the vote.
I guess my only comment is when it comes to setbacks, those don't have an environmental impact if you encroach them, but when you encroach a buffer, those do. And I think, I don't know if I can speak for everybody, but everybody always comes to the Stormwater Committee first to get the variance. And we very rarely see when people try to get a setback variance. So that's usually what I have an issue with, but yeah. I think you've done a very good job to mitigate.
To answer your question, just frank and honestly, with a stormwater buffer encroachment, depending on which part of town you're in, you very rarely will have huge opposition from the community. If you want to put your house 15 feet closer to the road than any other house is along the street, depending upon which part of town you're in, you're most likely going to have a lot of backlash. So we felt like, in this circumstance, what's under our control is the engineering practices. And that's why we had to make a decision, and that's why we came this direction. There may be another lot that varies, but you never know.
Yeah.
But I understand your question. Trust me, we wrestled with it too.
It's a good point too. Any other discussion? Seeing none, let's take a vote. All those in favor of approval of the variance request, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any of those opposed? Seeing none, the motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't want to speak to this on the case, but I'm also the lawyer for the BZA, and so the setbacks variances would go before the Board of Zoning Appeals. If it's granted, you might not ever see it because there may not be a need. So I just wanted to make sure you all were aware of that as well, but I didn't want to interrupt the flow of the conversation.
Yeah, thank you for that point.
Commissioner, may I also? So we saw something similar to this not too long ago along Miami and Pennington, and we struggled with setbacks and buffers.
Thank you.
It's like once you do the setbacks and buffers, they kind of touch or overlap. Historically, Metro Water has not provided comments for BZA cases, and recently that has changed. So we are starting to review BZA cases as they conflict with our regulations. So we're starting to look more into that with the setbacks also.
That's good. I think Anna raised a good point that we ought to be looking at both, not just which one we can get through easier. Without any more cases on the agenda, let's go to, I guess, move to the business items. I don't have it in front of me. Did we have any business items?
Rebecca needs to speak on that.
Oh, yeah, we've got one of our favorite parties.
Yes, I just want to let you know that Fontenelle is going to be returning in February. During a compliance inspection with their stormwater plan, we found
that they were hosting an event that exceeded the number of days that they proposed that they would be using that area for events. So we issued a notice of non-compliance and requested that they return here to get approvals for those additional disturbances that they are having on their site.
So these are disturbances within the buffer,
Yes.
and that we granted them a certain amount of time they could do that, and then they're exceeding that time?
Yes. Well, they developed their own stormwater management plan, which we approved, but then they were operating outside of the parameters that they set up for themselves. So we have asked them to redo their stormwater management plan, including everything that they could possibly want to do out there, and come back and see if they can get permission for that.
Mr. Chairman, maybe to just clarify, this related to the use of the buffer. If you recall, they were granted a certain number of events per year for the buffer area. I believe it was for parking for certain events. And I think since that time, their use of those areas has somewhat changed. So what we've asked them to do is reassess what their current use of that is envisioned to be, and then put that into the form of a report and come back to the committee to verify that's still in the spirit of the variance that was granted.
So when do we expect to hear this?
February.
I would appreciate it if staff would also bring just a really concise list of all the other instances where we've had to deal with them on these kind of things.
We can most definitely compile a list.
Let's make it concise, though.
Emphasis on
all day long.
Yeah. I think it'd be helpful to all the new board members just to see the history.
That's true. Good point. So, not seeing any other items on the agenda. What happened to the discussion about proper procedure here? And we're going to revisit that, because I think the last comment was that there's something on the internet, our webpage, that's not really consistent with what we do. Has that been taken down?
Yes, sir. As an update, it has been taken down. I've worked on some new procedural discussion points for the committee, and hopefully I could get that back up for you guys to view it in maybe the next meeting or two.
Okay, great. Is that something that maybe you could email through Penny to get a copy of it to all of us so we can read it before we come in?
Absolutely. I really didn't get any direction on how you really want to see it, but what I've been kind of doing is I've kind of modeled it after planning. Originally, right now, you're technically, if all the people that came up to speak, you're supposed to limit them to like 3 people.
Right.
So planning doesn't limit it to 3 people, and they will allow up to 30, 40 at times. Luckily, I don't think you guys are going to see that here, but I'm assuming you would want everybody who comes to have an opportunity to speak, and that's how I'm going to try to model it.
No, I think modeling after planning is a perfect idea, so I'd like to see that, and then we can talk about that in the meeting. But I do think that that's something we should try to get done by February would be great, so if we could talk about it in January.
Just to give the board some ideas, I also am the attorney for planning, and they limit the time period so that even though you may expand the numbers of people that may be heard, you have limited the time as well. So that may be something that you all also may want to consider.
Ms. Jones is absolutely right. Hal and I have talked about it. They actually have a timer. Everybody's allowed to speak. A citizen who comes in is allowed 2 minutes. And as soon as that person starts speaking, the timer goes. After the 2 minutes is over, it starts beeping. And, sometimes they even use a gavel and get people to stop speaking after that time. I don't know if you want that ability. I don't remember in the past that you've told somebody you're talking way too much, you need to sit down. But
as long as I've been on this board, we never have. And I think, generally speaking, it's a bad practice. The problem would be if we have a case that comes before the board where those types of things are actually needed and we don't have it in place to use it. That's the issue. So, I think we should probably talk about what our options are. I certainly am well aware of how to use that, being a lawyer, litigator. So it certainly is. It's easy to do, and you can certainly. Another thing you can do too is just because you go past the 2 minutes, it doesn't mean you're screaming and yelling, telling the person to stop when it's not really necessary. But having the procedure in place
would allow us to handle a significant matter if it came in front of us, although I've not ever seen that happening. I think it's highly unlikely. But I think if we can talk about what our options are there, I don't know. I mean, I assume planning, I don't know if that's built into where they have their meeting, or is that something we can bring in and just set right here?
I believe they do bring it, they set it, and it's handled by the chairman. Isn't it the chairman who sets that time?
Right.
Or chairman or
Bring it in. It's set, but the time is set by rule. There are two different rules. One, if you're representing just yourself as an individual, but also if you're representing a group, you get a little bit more time. So that's kind of how theirs is set up. They bring the timer in. So does the BZA. They bring the timer in.
Okay. Well, maybe let's talk about what those options are. I mean, I think this little discussion here will give all of us time to kind of think through that, what we like or don't like. That sounds great. Any other items? Well, seeing none, I'd like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. And see you in the new year.
Move to adjourn.
Second the motion. All in favor of moving to adjourn?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nay. Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.org.